three now. Now, in 1978, the advertising company Saatchi and Saatchi's iconic "Labour Isn't Working" poster first appeared on billboards. At the time, around 1.6 million people were out of work, and the winter of discontent, as you know, was just around the corner. Well, the Conservatives, led by Thatcher, won the May 79 election with a 43-seat majority, and the Conservative Party Treasurer Lord Thornycroft credited that poster with winning the election for the party. Well, Labour's Dennis Healey criticised it in the House of Commons, saying the Conservatives were selling politics like soap powder. Well, a new survey for Saatchi suggests that almost three-quarters of us find that life is less enjoyable and more financially challenging than it was just a decade ago. Only about a third of the people they surveyed said that the general election will have an impact on their financial prospects. So I was interested to talk a little bit about this and about the advertising aspect of the general election with Richard Huntington, who is the chair of Saatchi and Saatchi. And when I spoke to him, I asked him if he was surprised by the survey results.
Well, we weren't surprised, to be honest, because this is the second time we've taken the temperature of the nation. We did this last year, and it was shocking, really, quite how worried, tired and desperate for hope people were back then. The real difference this year is we decided to focus quite clinically on the middle class because we wanted to find out whether they were struggling as well. And so when we look at stats like 73% of people thinking life is less enjoyable and more financially challenging than 10 years ago, that is of the middle class. It's of a group of people who theoretically have a little bit more than others. So I think we were surprised at how the impact of this economic crisis is ripping through every cohort of the nation.
Yeah, the squeezed middle, isn't that what they call this demographic?
I call them the heartland, because I think if the working class is the backbone of this country, I think we need to engage with the idea that the middle class are the heartland. They represent 80% of our tax revenue, and they are the audience upon which most British businesses depend, and certainly many of our organisations that we work with depend.
Yeah. So how do politicians enthuse people about the election when overall the mood is just so pessimistic?
Well, they're not doing a very good job, are they? I mean,
No.
it's a tough ask. The level of engagement in our politics is at a record low, particularly amongst young people. We know that in 2019, less than 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted, and barely more than 50% of anybody up to the age of 40 voted. And I think that spells, well, that says something to us about the dangers that lie ahead for our democracy. Our view is that what people are feeling is government no longer governs, that there's a sense of that the people in charge are no longer in control. After all, they constantly tell us that it's outside forces that are leading to our economic ills and not the action of government. And I think that I hear time and time again from people that they just want politicians, they just want government to roll up its sleeve and get on with helping out people, helping their challenges in their lives and in their communities.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, the iconic advertisement of 1978, yeah. Labour Isn't Working here. I mean, it just shows you the power of advertising. Could that work now in 2024? What could the parties do at this stage that would catch people's attention in that way?
Right. Yes. Well, I was 12 when that poster went out. I don't quite remember. Executionally, I don't think it would work any longer. We've lost, I think, that double meaning of Labour. But punchy, credible attack advertising still has a role if people want to use it. I think what we see, however, is a very poor, unprofessional quality of communication from all the parties, and that era in which the agenda of an election was set by those poster ads and was clarified and crystallized to the electorate is perhaps past us. And I think that's a real shame. A lot of the conversation is now taking place in the shadows of social media and not in the broad daylight of outdoor advertising, frankly.
And I mean, that's both good and bad in equal measures, I think, Richard, because in some ways there's very targeted advertising there, but also you find that what you engage with, you then become stuck in this tunnel of that message,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think it's bad and bad.
Do you?
You know, what you got to, oh yes, because what you got to remember is we've put together social media, paid social, which means that any advertiser, but particularly politicians, operate in this sort of shadowy world where we can't really tell what they're up to. And you ally that with the fact that political advertising in this country is completely unregulated. Every ad that we see, whether it's social media or outdoor or on the telly or radio, has to be legally decent and honest, except if it's from a political party, in which it does not need to be either decent or specifically honest. And therefore, you've put together a social media landscape not known for its accuracy and truth-telling, with a form of advertising that's completely unregulated. And I think we've really got a problem there, that politics is being done in the dark.
That's interesting you say that. And, you know, in my head, I'm thinking of some of the ad campaigns that I've seen recently when I've been just scrolling in social media. And some of them, I can't tell whether they are official by one of the parties or whether they're just from somebody who's made it up. And that's another kind of murky realm. And obviously, I look into that and I want to know where it's come from. But not everybody does that.
No, but that'd be true of a lot of the messaging we get on social media. But that sort of advertising is what we call in the advertising world scam. It's not being bought by a client. It's not real advertising. It didn't actually happen. And I saw two ads, one from the Labour side. I don't think it was official Labour advertising, but from the Labour side, and one from on the Tory Twitter account, who were both mocking up posters on the same poster site. Like, you could see that in the background, they dropped in on the computer screen, on their graphics package, their poster into exactly the same background image. So you can tell that they're simply scamming. They're not running real advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. Richard, if the polls are correct and the Tories do face the defeat that has been predicted, can they come back from that? Is brand conservative growing toxic?
I mean, I remember doing a talk to Labour in 2016, asking exactly the same question. I mean, the reality of the brand landscape is that any brand can come back if it has the desire to put things right. Any commercial brand, any cause, and any political brand. And we see that over time. The Tories came back from that appalling defeat in 1997. Labour's come back from that defeat in 2019. So any political brand can restore its fortunes. It's going to be a question of whether they really want to do what it will take. We've always said that elections are won from the middle ground, and it is going to be a question of whether they feel they can get themselves back into the hearts and minds of the nation as at large and not specific communities.
Richard Huntington there, who's the chair of Saatchi and Saatchi. I spoke to him just before we came on air about that iconic ad from 1978, Labour Isn't Working, and whether or not something like that would happen these days. Because it is interesting when you scroll through social media. I'm sure many of you do in the way that I do when I've got some idle time, or when I should be doing something important but have not got round to it yet. And you see the ads pop up, and I'm always trying to work out, is it an official one? Is it not an official one? It's quite interesting. Right, it's 5 Live. We're live, of course, through the night. We'll get some of your text messages, because I've been asking you, what is the oldest thing you own? Is it an appliance maybe in your kitchen that just won't give up? Is it something in your wardrobe? What is it? And there's some really, really lovely stories as well. So we'll get to some of your text messages. Get involved. 85058 is the number. Let's take a look at the news headlines now. It is 3:31. Sorry.
The voice of the UK.
And the home of the Euros and the general election 2024.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Here's the news headlines. The Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has insisted a campaigner who was caught making a racial slur about Rishi Sunak was part of a setup intended to damage his party's reputation. The Prime Minister said he was hurt by the comments that were secretly recorded by Channel 4's undercover reporter. Mr Sunak's called on Mr Farage to answer questions that remain about the remarks. Thousands of people across the UK who have registered to vote by post haven't received their ballots less than a week from polling day. The Electoral Commission says local authorities and Royal Mail are working to deliver the packs as quickly as possible. The editorial board of America's influential New York Times is calling for Joe Biden to drop out of the race for the White House. The left-leaning news, 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 the left-leaning news.